What's good? So, the Tower of God anime has been getting a lot more hype nowadays, as we're getting closer to about a month before the season airs in April 2020. Now, I saw a post on Twitter that said that it would actually start airing Wednesday, April 1st, but that is April Fool's Day, so I don't know if I buy that too much, but we know for a fact that it is airing sometime in April next month. If this title isn't an indication of spoiler alert, well, you've been warned now. This video is going to be about the speculation of the first season airing for Tower God and will be 100% spoilers, so don't say I didn't warn you. Now, let's begin. This past Friday, on February 28th of 2020, the first episode of Tower of God aired for a Chicago event, C2E2. We got some feedback on Reddit on how the episode was, and it was great to hear that it went pretty smoothly and looked amazing. All the Reddit links and things that I discuss will be in the description down below, so go look that stuff up on the platform if you want to read more into it. The post about the premiere suggested that it was about 30 minutes of footage covering the initial test 1 on floor 1, and it ends with Bomb meeting Kun and Rock for the first time. For reference, the floor 1 test takes about 5 out of the 78 chapters for season 1. A Reddit user later analyzed and predicted a total number of 24 episodes that produce roughly 3 chapters per episode, which does make a lot of sense, as a typical season runs for either 12 or 24 episodes, and 12 episodes for a partnership between Crunchyroll and the Webtoons that's been in the works for about 2 years now doesn't feel right. So the standard 24 makes sense for the beats of the story for season 1. With the full 30 minutes, where usually an episode is 21 minutes with 9 for commercials, it'll most likely end with Bomb popping the ball with the Black March and a flash to Evenko's Hell, the first floor 2 test, which accounts for about 5 chapters. Now, I'll make an argument for an 18 episode run airtime for season 1. The Tower of God anime release is already a little abnormal, with the fact that it's the first webtoon to get animated. It's also being released in 3 languages at the same time: Korean, English, and Japanese. The betrayal at the end of season 1 will set up anime onlys to flock to the webtoon once the season airs, so why not give it as much love and attention for that setup as needed? By having 18 total episodes, the anime will have a chance to be one of the only seasons this spring cycle to air its finale offbeat from the usual airing of 12 or 24 episode counts. There have been a couple unique showings of seasons before, with the most recent that I can remember being Vinland Saga in summer of 2019, where it dropped its first 3 episodes all at once and took a 3-week break until episode 4. This allowed for the entire prologue of the season to be binged all at once and make way for the rest of the season, which focuses on Thorfinn. By dropping offbeat, imagine the reactions and the discussions that will happen after episode 17/18 in Tower God season 1, when the betrayal of a lifetime happens with Rachel. So let's break down the story beats of where each episode would end. Even though 24 is more than enough, I don't believe 18 episodes would condense it too much and make it too fast paced, as some chapters in this first season are varied in the content per chapter to be added to the episodes. It's not really a fair assumption to make that 3 chapters of the webtoon will always produce enough to complete 1 episode in the anime. The story has some important moments that naturally break the season into parts, with floor 1, test 1 and test 2 of floor 2, the crown game and its 5 rounds, position training team A and B in the hide and seek test, and then the final test of floor 2. Below we get into what I think the various episodes will actually consist of. So episode 1, probably going to be what was aired in the expo in Chicago. Bomb enters the story while chasing Rachel, blah 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 blah. We love Yuri, and we get an intro from Hidan of the tower, and Bomb faces his first test while Yuri and Evan watch. Bomb ignites the Black March, which pops the ball and allows him to enter the next floor. This episode is a good framework because it sets the setting of the story, as Bomb will continue to chase Rachel no matter what the cost. Also, Bomb being able to ignite a weapon that Yuri can't even do makes him also special, even though they analyzed him earlier within this episode as being ordinary. Episode 2 would open with the slaughtering of regulars down to 200 in Evenko's Hell, which is the first test of floor 2. The introduction of Rock and Kun would be perfect, as they are the support of our little tasty bomb. An ending where the Reddit user said would end with Rock screaming turtles. This would adapt about chapters 6 to 7. As we discussed earlier, episode 1 is roughly 5 chapters. Yes, only 2 chapters, so we can add chapter 8 to this, or part of chapter 8, which ends with Ship Lisu saying that he's casually leaving while watching the fight between Anna and Hats. Episode 3 3, we get the start with the end of the first test of floor 2, where Bomb and Kun are fighting against Rock to make a team with him, since he just wants to hunt. He doesn't want to team up with anyone. We get the full 5 minutes of stalling, and Chip Lee Soo joining the monsters that he was watching fight, Anak and Hats. The episode ends with the first pass of Ranker's Lee Roro Shinsu wall test, where Bomb makes it through first, and the Ranker, probably the last line of the episode is when the Ranker Lee Roro says, "A monster has arrived." Now this would be from chapters 8 to 10. The next episode will be more exposition on the tower and on who irregulars are, and will lead right to the door test conducted by Yoon Ha-sung, and see Bomb's test actually complete that challenge with the doors and the clock. And we'll see how other teams that passed the original test of the slaughtering handle being able to, gather all the information they need to pass the doors test. And then the last few seconds will be Rachel's team destroying the other testing site and the ramifications that will cause throughout the story. So this will probably adapt chapters 11 to 14. We begin in episode 5 with the crown game, which is an exciting time because we get to see fighting between teams that were forced into a confined setting. We get through the explanation of the crown game and see the various strategies that are available to go about. After 2 rounds, we have Anak leave her seat at the throne and face Bomb's team still in their cell. The reveal of Anak as a daughter of Jihad is a big moment, as it has repercussions all the way to the final test of the floor at the end of the season. This will adapt chapters 14 to half of 19, and the crown game starts the first time where we deviate from the usual 3 chapters per episode. Since fight scenes generally take less time, that means they can take in more content from the chapters to be able to use it. Now we have the second half of the crown game with episode 6, where Anak's new rule to the game causes Bomb to actively make a decision for himself and his team, which kind of shows what kind of person he is under stress. Bomb's team gets to take the challenge to win round 3 and stay in control until the end of round 5 of this crown game. Round 3 shows the tactical prowess and the cockiness of Kun, of course, and round 4 continues to show how Kun has been actually setting up her wins all the way from the first time that we see him in the first test of floor 2, and this will adapt roughly 19 to 23. Now episode 3 will be the last round of the crown game, which is by far the most important, as everyone comes to play, and we get a dedicated full episode runtime for this. We see best girl Hwarin do her thing versus Androsi. Bomb leaps from the throne to save who he thinks is Rachel, and the episode ends with Bomb using Shinso without any admin approval to finish off the crown game, and this will be chapters 23 to 26. So after having so much fights, and we had a 3-episode run of the crown game, we have a de-stressing, not really de-stressing, but a non-action based episode, which is episode 8, and this is the aftermath of the crown game with the exposition between Lee Roro and Yoo Ha-sung. Anak tries to activate the Black March, and then we have the first interactions between Kun and Rachel. Bomb awakens from a slumber right before the next exam starts, and then this is the pretty shorter one with just taking chapters 26 to 28. Episode 9, we learn about one of the biggest team mechanisms with the positions that regulars hold, and the placement test begins. We meet the different position professors and the showdown between 2 Jihad princesses, and we actually learn what a princess of Jihad actually is. But the most important part is Bomb actually making friends, with the ending of the episode adding the princess to his friends list, and that goes from chapters 28 to 33. Episode 10. So we've already gotten a little past halfway through, and we finally see the first visible betrayals of the show, as we call Tower of Betrayals, with Ho in this episode. The hide and seek game is described, and the ending of the episode is Quant appearing in the maze as the main tester. So we have a bunch of regulars that we've learned their positioning and whatnot, and they've been going to training, and now they have to fight a ranker themselves. Episode 11 and 12. So 11 will be Team A's performance in the hide and seek, and episode 12 will be Team B's performance. So in episode 11, since we have, kind of a short run for episode 10, where we're only going from chapters 34 to 36, episode 11 could take a few of the 1 or 2 chapters at the beginning of this section and join with the previous episode. But we'll see how all this position training plays out in an actual fight with the ranker. And we end up with the loss of Team A due to Kun's stunning manipulation of everyone. And episode 11 will run from either 36 to 42 or 38 to chapter 42. Episode 12, as we mentioned, is the second half of the hide and seek test, where Team B's performance is being tested. This will be the most amount of chapters adapted into a single episode, from episodes 43 to 51, which is a pretty big chunk. And in reality, this may be split into 2 to 3 episodes. Since Bomb is a protagonist, of course, Team B's trial will have more airtime. We see the betrayals of the fishermen and the spear bearers, as well as the revolution. Ho captures Rachel and uses Bomb to take on Quant the Ranker. Although the death of Ho is a pretty big impact for Bomb's character development, I feel like Team B's win has a more proper conclusion to this episode. So now we're about 2/3 done with the season, ending with the hide and seek, and especially with such a big test or a big scenario that involves more than one episode, we have a de-stress episode. So episode 13 is the aftermath of the hide and seek test. Bomb makes another serious decision since the crown game, as his teammates continue to follow him and use and carry Rachel through this test. Kun and Liroro discuss the sabotage of Team B, and we see the real villain of the season being Bomb's teacher. Everyone finds out that Bomb is an irregular, which is a really big reveal, and that still gets played on in this current story in season 3. The final test begins for floor 2, and this episode, this kind of de-stressor episode but build up for the final test, adapts chapters 51 to 59. Episode 14, we learn about some ecology of the wine glass / the hole, and what the wind conditions are for this final test to be able to move up to floor 3. The bull makes an appearance to wreak havoc, and this episode ends with the reveal of Bomb's teacher, who was the actual one that killed Anak's mother. So back in the crown game, the first episode of the 3-episode series from Crown Game, we learn that Anak is the daughter of a Jihad, or is a Jihad princess, and this is where it all hits the fan, when the teacher has come as an assassin to take out Anak. Episode 15, we see all the other parts of the test progressing. Ren, the assassin, destroys both Androsi and Anak until our favorite princess Yuri steps up to the plate. This episode shows the start of the battle amongst and against the princess of Jihad, and this runs from chapters 64 to 68. Episode 16, so we have 3 more episodes left, 16, 17, and 18. 16 is when Yuri's team, which we've seen snippets throughout the episodes, actually joined the test to collect the Black March. Yu Hasong knew that they were coming and double crosses Ren to have Yuri's team actually clean up the mess, and the episode ends with Ren's defeat by Yuri's team, and this kind of adapts chapter 69 to half of 72. The second, or the penultimate episode, episode 17. As Yuri departs with both of the ignition weapons, the test resumes with a focus on Bomb and Rachel on their little boat. The bull actually attacks them, and Bomb has to protect his friend Rachel from the threat since she can't really use her legs anymore. The end of the episode is the biggest betrayal known to the series, where Rachel pushes Bomb to his death, and this will only adapt probably the least amount of chapters, with half of 72 to the end of chapter 74. And our final episode, episode 18, is when we tie up all the loose ends with the aftermath of Bomb's death and the success of all the other regulars to move on to the next floor. We see all the pieces that were put in motion in the background, and the end is when Bomb, who is still very alive and very angry, survives, and that wraps up the whole season, because this adapts chapters 75 to 78. Well, that's all for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with my breaks for each episode and how you think the season will actually be split up. If you get a chance, subscribe to get access to these reviews every week. My social media can be found by searching Inspirational on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. Shout out to my designer. You can find his work on Instagram at JatinV_photography. Shout out to my editor. You can find him on Twitter at YoungObesity. See you all next time.